All right. Well, hey guys, how you doing? I don't really have a name for my podcast channel, but anyways, welcome to my podcast. This is my oldest son, Richard Rubio. He goes by the name of Rich, so we're going to do that. He's here because he just published a new book called The Forefront. So we're here to talk about his book and also to give you guys the opportunity to kind of get to know him, and not just what motivated him to write the book, but just, a few other things. A little bit more, not as personal, but just general information about who he is and what he's doing today and plans for the future. So without further ado, son, welcome to the podcast.
Glad to be here.
All right. And I told him I was going to make up some questions, so here we go. So give me a moment here. Well, this loads up. And this shouldn't take too long. I mean, not that I'm really concerned about that. I just wanted to make sure that we being responsible with time here. But anyways, Richard is here because he is he's in the Naval Reserve, so he does reserve time, and sometimes he gets more days outside of the weekends to come up here. So he's on a special drill time period. So it's always a pleasure to have him here. Golly, I get all these alerts here. Anyway, so just to let you know some notes that I took, that he's my son, so, obviously I'm going to try to do the best job I can to describe some of the facets of Richard and who he is. He's definitely my son. He's a son. He's a fiance and uncle, a sailor, a fire controlman in the Navy Reserve. He's a government contractor. He's an investor, a small business owner, Fireheart Fitness. And he offers apparel and equipment. It's really cool. Certified personal trainer. He's a surfer, skater, competitive powerlifter, martial artist, and he took Taekwondo when he was younger and did very well, by the way. He's a hiker, a backpacker, a cook, a lover of food, and so much more. Again, he's my eldest son, as I introduced from the very beginning, and he's here so that we both can have a discussion about his book, The Forefront. So again, we've just wanted to get that. Again, for me, I really never imagined that, that I would be sitting there interviewing my own son, and in particular with regard to his first published book. That's just something that I never would have thought that would have happened. It's not meant in a negative way. I never really gave that thought. It was not something in my natural thought processes that came up. But however, in retrospect, when I look back, as who you are, not just now, but who you were as a little boy growing up, you were the one, we read to you while you were in your mother's womb. We really did that. And most of the family did. Your grandma Gloria, your mom, myself, your cousin Vicky, we all read to you. And we played music and things like that. So he is musically inclined, by the way, guys. He's a very accomplished musician and guitarist. He had a metal band in high school. Who does that? I had a jazz band, but wow,
Jazz fingers.
Yeah, jazz hands. But anyway, so one of the things that I noted was when you were younger that you definitely, even before elementary school, his reading level was at least 2 to 3 grades ahead of everybody else. And I know that was attributed to us just, training you with reading even before you were born. And then when he was born, every time a book fair would come up, he'd be looking for books that were above his reading level because he was already there. So, in addition to that, just all the creativity that he's done. He's done a lot with video production, by the way, in addition to writing. So, and just a lot of things. When we got him his first video camera, man, it was over, man. And a lot of those videos we talk about a lot, and they're very creative and so funny. And just how he used what he had to make transitional effects, and even just these short little clips that are 2-3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and a neat little power pack storyline. It was very entertaining. So again, I look back and now I'm not shocked or surprised. I am very proud, obviously, of your accomplishments, but in particular your first published book. I know myself, I've never considered myself a writer. I do editing, I've done editing, I've read, I've been kind of a ghost writer of sorts, but nothing like this. I never really felt the compulsion to write a book. So So anyways, that's kind of, in a nutshell, just my perspective on this, to read this book and to know that my son made this. And, before I ask any questions, we're going to do the format is I'm going to do kind of like just a 10 round or a 10 question icebreaker to get things going for you. And then I go into some of the questions. But I will ask this. How long was this book in the making? How long did it take you to write it?
Actually writing it, I want to say maybe it took me a span of June up until now.
Okay, so not even 6 months.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Now, as far as the concept, when did the concept come for you to write the book?
The concept came from always having the goal of I wanted to publish a book. And I toyed with the idea for years, but I never felt like I had the right avenue to do it or the right content. But after experiencing my car accident where we were nearly killed back in January, you kind of get a refresh on your perspective. Like, okay, if something like this happens again, I may not be so lucky next time around. Why don't I go for it? And you know me growing up, I usually just go do things if I want it. But it kind of put the extra fire to the feet to go and get to writing it sooner. And once I got to the first part, the first page, it all kind of came naturally.
Right.
And it was word flow from there.
Yeah. No, I believe me, I totally agree with you. And because I really didn't have any idea of the time frame of like how long does this take you to write. Not like it was a laborious task. It was just typically writers will spend roughly about a year they hack out of the editorial, just getting the rough editorial, and then all the bells and whistles for the front and back cover, and then the preface and the forward and the intro, all the format. Typically they can take up to a year depending on what kind of work it is. Okay, so now I'm just going to go into just kind of a lightning round of these 10 questions here. So, and I'm just going to ask you the question, and you give the first response off the top of your head. And this is for the viewing audience, so they can kind of get a general idea of who you are. All right. Okay. So, first of all, what is your favorite meal?
Anything with meat in it.
Okay. What is your favorite cheat meal?
Probably sushi.
Okay. All right. What is your favorite restaurant?
Oh man. Wow. All right, I would have to probably say Yukai just because it's down here, even though I live away from it. It's a solid go-to. I usually cook at home. That's why it's hard to throw a beat on a favorite nowadays.
No, because he is a certified personal trainer. He does stick to a very solid nutrition plan and all that. And it's just funny because it was a loaded question, by the way. I kind of figured it was going to be Yukai, because anytime he's here, I always treat him out to dinner or lunch or whatever the case may be. Okay, cool. Do you have a favorite go-to cuisine that you love?
I'll usually cook top round roast or pork chops with chopped simmered vegetables and seasoning. That's usually my go-to.
Yeah, that's pretty good too. Bacon or no bacon?
Yes, definitely bacon.
Okay. All right. Bourbon, whiskey, beer, wine, gin, vodka, or rum?
Bourbon.
Okay, there we go. He also likes rum too, but yeah, he's a big bourbon fan. What is your favorite surf break?
I haven't been to too many of them. I'd probably say Hatters.
All right, very good. And longboard or shortboard?
Longboard.
Okay. What kind of diet or nutrition plan are you on right now?
I eat about my body weight in grams of protein, moderately to high fat intake, and a moderate carb intake. It's powerlifting season, so obviously those numbers scale up to meet the nutritional needs of what I need. And I'm trying not to dirty bulk like I do every year. I actually want to clean bulk and maintain a modicum of definition and strength maintenance and not getting heavy. If I do put on muscle, which is the goal, I want to do that, but I want to do it cleanly because dirty bulks, they help, but you get fluffy and it's extra work to find it.
Yeah, because you're carrying extra weight. Believe me, I know all about extra weight, but and it does. It taxes your system. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. You are a competitive power lifter. What is your favorite lift?
Oh, deadlift.
Deadlift, yeah. And it's funny. It's like in most competitions, I always remember the strategy when I was into that is your deadlift. That's really where your success is going to be at. It's not the bench, and depending on your body structure, it's not necessarily your squat. It's going to be that deadlift because you can pull some big time weight because it's a compound exercise. Whereas the squat is predominantly your legs. It does involve your upper and lower body and your core, but that's what I've learned. Is when you're pulling off the ground like that, you don't have to be that big to be able to make some great gains and win.
Yep.
So that's what I've always remembered. Very good. What is your least favorite lift?
Probably the squat. I have longer legs.
Yeah. I haven't squatted in years, so I got nothing. All right. Okay. So now we're going to move on. So the first question about the book, The Four Fronts, available on Amazon, by the way. How did you come up with the title, The Four Fronts?
It was partly inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. They revolve around the four elements, and me being a total RPG and fantasy nerd my whole life, I've always thought that there is a little artistic elegance in those four elements, and I've always enjoyed the number 4 for whatever reason. I part of it probably my OCD when I was younger. I had it bad. That number has been a recurring thing. So I went, well, 2 and 2 came together, made 4 fronts. It just came to mind and went, this sounds like a very complete but simple way to convey what I'm trying to get across without going too far ad nauseum into, I guess, conveying the point of the book I wanted to, but also not shorting too little.
Yeah. Okay, cool. With your permission, I'd like to read the intro to your book, The Four Fronts, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And it's just an excerpt. Wait a minute, hold on. No, actually, I need to read the intro, so. Not bad. Well, I'm a terrible interviewer, aren't I? Let me see. Hold on, give me a moment.
No problem.
There we go. Okay. I'm waiting for the book to load up. So I apologize. I don't have a hard copy of the book, guys. I mean, as soon as he released that the book was published, I went on. I don't have a whole lot of hard copy books, so it's on my Amazon Kindle. So, all right, without further ado, the introduction to The Four Fronts. A cautionary tale to those who are about to read. And in parentheses, TW, aka trigger warning, to those familiar to that line of jargon anyway. This book is going to touch upon life with a generous amount of information that can inspire one to reevaluate and have a paradigm shift on life for the better if open to it. Objective reality and methods to combat the harshness of the world we live in, ways to cultivate fortitude, resiliency, resourcefulness, grounded strength, and knowledge, aka being based, await the reader. Life isn't easy. Yes, obviously it's a bit harder to imagine fighting a faceless enemy, per se, but it's the same energy and mentality you'll want when life comes ready to mix with you. You're also going to need the same energy to be ready to identify when you need to fix something within yourself, if the case calls for it. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy. Does that song by Liv from the 2000s resonate here? In parentheses. And need to fix ourselves in short order before moving forward. Of course, we're going to tackle the struggle of self. We as humans must push ourselves to be the best we can be and overcome our own limitations to meet the challenges that life has to offer. I've seen countless struggle, including my own friends and family, with various things, and I genuinely want to impart what I've learned along the way to anyone who reads this. This book is focused to maintain a spirit of lightheartedness, but will also have the reader face undisputable truths and facts of life, both of which I will not pull punches on. That being said, let's arm up, march out, and have some fun. So, I thought that was a really good lead-in, a really, really good introduction, very strong, and I kind of, because typically when you write a book, your intro is basically you're prefacing. You want to let the reader know what they're going to expect. What are the expectations here? What is the book going to be all about? So I really, really, really enjoyed that. As well. And let me see here. Now I'm going to read something from chapter 1. So give me a moment with that. And I know this isn't really questions, but there will be questions along the way, guys. So just bear with me here. There we go. So this is, in chapter 1, and actually let me get the title right here. Chapter 1, Who Am I? So this is basically Richard speaking to us, the reader. I've had my share of tribulations in life, much like you have. Young me was quite overweight, had few friends for a good amount of years, and was constantly picked on and ostracized for being a fat boy, as well as having a love for all things nerdy. I've watched friends and family members pass on, buried a few of them, felt the crushing feeling of heartbreak and failed relationships, lost a job while trying to sustain an apartment until the lease is in, while barely making bills. That eventually drove me to a heaping amount of debt. My upbringing and family dynamic was certainly less than ideal growing up. I've had people I considered friends leave me in my darkest hours, and so on. I could continue, but I'm not here to commiserate. I'm here to relate to you, the reader, and help. So it'll give me a moment to switch back because I'm going between documents here. So some of the things that I read in this part of chapter 1, I was aware of. Obviously, because of the divorce, a lot of transformational and pivotal things happened during that time in your life, in your brother's life, in your sister's life, and they make a contribution, I know, to the book. One of the I didn't know that you were being picked on. I had no idea. I mean, I remember in elementary school with you and that one person, and you pretty much took them to the ground. Which, high five.
Gotta handle your business.
Yeah. When somebody throws rocks, they better know there's going to be some.
You got mitts to catch all these hands with.
Yeah. There's going to be some kind of payment involved. But anyways, the other part of it too, I didn't know that. As you got older. Yeah, I can relate to that as well, that kind of treatment. I've received that in most of my life, whether it was jokingly or just to be spiteful or hurtful. And most people do it to not joke, but to really just to hurt you. That's how people do. Again, it saddens me that you had to go through that. However, I'm not sad at how you use those things to overcome just life situations that happen. Okay, and that's what this book is about, guys. So anyways, with that being said, did some of these experiences inspire and motivate you to write the book? I know it's kind of a redundant question, but
Yeah, they did. I was that part of the book. I was just trying to draw upon some of my own sufferings to say, hey, I'm not going to be that faceless author that acts like I'm bulletproof, and I haven't gone through anything. I don't want to be unrelatable. If you're an unrelatable person, how are you going to better communicate with other people?
Yeah. And I think that's a healthy perspective, because that's really a fundamental of just relationship 101, whether they're total and complete strangers or if they're longtime friends or even family, is that there has to be a commonality. There has to be some way that you can connect and understand each other and appreciate who that person is. You may not agree with everything they do or say or think, and that's okay. And what I loved about the book is that it kind of brings that to light. The methodology is a bit different, and it's a departure from what I would do. However, it's not up for me to cast a judgment or an aspersion against that. I'll speak to what I believe, and I'll do that later on. But chapter 1 was really just that, identifying who you are. I think was really, really nice to do. Because in some books, depending on the type of book, you're not going to get that. In particular, like fiction and even fantasy stuff. It's just because it's a different storyline. But this storyline is pertinent because people have to know, where have you come from? Who are you? And why is this book out here? And I think that's important. Identity, as I've known all along from my sum total of life, if you don't know who you are, man, you're in trouble.
Yeah, life hurts more when you don't have that traction.
Because not knowing who we are kind of drives the bus of life as far as decisions that we make. If you're that person that's going to go with the crowd and cave to peer pressure and not take a stand for what's pure, true, and noble, as the Bible says, then no, man, you're just going to be like every other jelly spine, soft-shelled turtle out there. That's not the way to be. And quite frankly, in this life, people who stand for the truth, they're the ones who get the most blowback, because people don't want to hear the truth. Okay, and you're gonna, as we go through this book here, I'm just hitting some high points. That in me reading through it, there are most of the book I totally relatable and can relate to it, because I've been through it, done it, that kind of thing. But anyways, yeah, I thought that was really, really, really cool. Let's see here. Yeah, I kind of got ahead of myself, so because I like to talk too much. Well, actually, not so much. It's still, we're still in that spot. So in chapter 1, in the part in that paragraph where you said, I don't like seeing people struggle. When I read that part there for myself, it really made me super duper proud of you and who you are, the man that you are now. And obviously, I'm looking forward to seeing how much further you're going to grow. For you to be young, and Richard's in his 20s, okay, so he's a young man, and I dare say that where he's at in his life, man, he's got a lot of wisdom. I think he has more wisdom than I had when I was his age. I was so, oh man, I don't want to go over that. But I'm not making this about me. It's about this book. So, anyways, we can agree that life is change and growth, and there is not growth without change. There is no life without change and growth, period. That's just, these are fundamental things that we know across the board. And the book goes into good detail about how we can do that, how we can foster that in ourselves, and different methodologies and ways to do it. So I love that part. Okay, moving on. Let's see here. Chapter 2, the front of life, wind. The very last part of the last sentence of the first paragraph, you write, life is suffering. Now, he and I had talked the other day about that, and when I read that part, because I had just finished the book, and I called him right up to talk with him, let him know, man, again, super proud, by default, I'm his dad, so I better be proud, but it was a good read, but that part really resonated with me. Life is struggle. And I believe that the world has been perpetuated into a lie and been deceived that, life is easy street. We live these Instagram lives where we live a life of luxury and glamour and all this other stuff. I got the trophy wife or trophy husband, and I got a Benzo in the garage and a ski boat. No, that's totally a lie. Most of us are just scratching it. We're fighting hard for everything that we have, and fighting harder for the things that we need. And so that really spoke to me. And again, when I read that, again, this passage of scripture came up. It's out of Romans chapter 5, verses 1 through 5. Therefore, since we have been justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Through him, we have also obtained access by faith into this grace in which we stand. We rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Not only that, but we rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. And see, I bring that up because that's really what popped up. And, because in my mind, I'm like, man, I know there's a scripture that talks right to that. And I love what it says, where it says, suffering produces endurance. Now, Richard, he talks about in the book, the physical front, earth, I think it is, right? Yeah, earth, that front there. And what you have to do is there are going to be times, man, where you're going to be hurting, whether you're working out, whether you're working a job and you're on your 18th hour and you still got so much to do. And your body's telling you no, but your mind is saying, we got to get on this, man. We got to get this done. Now, I've had those experiences when I was in the Navy, before I joined the Navy, when I worked different jobs. Now that he's in the Navy Reserves and also he's working hard, guys. I mean, he's working a lot of different job fields and areas. And what I love, and I'm kind of getting ahead here, but what I love about what he wrote is that, life is suffering, man. That's the truth. If you think that life is a smooth road, then you need to wake yourself up, stick your head in the toilet or an ice bucket or something, man, and wake up. Because life is not supposed to be easy. It wasn't designed that way. And anyways, I really love that part. That really resonated with me a lot. Okay. Again, guys, I know I'm not asking a lot of questions, but I'm getting to that. So bear with me. Thank you for your patience. As I read through the rest of chapter 2, the front of life wind, I enjoyed your glowing example of Guy Schmuckatelli and his choices radically changed the direction of his life. Once again, I am impressed with your insight and analytical skills. He and I had that conversation on the phone and it was just, first of all, as a dad, and now that he's a grown man, I mean, it's beautiful to have wonderful conversations with him about life. And I guess I never really pondered about that when he was young, when he was just a little kid. And now that he's a grown man, man, we're literally like, like really good, friends of really just bonding tighter. Because, when I was going through the divorce, there was just a big separation there, and a lot of hurt was, had to happen. And divorce, the kids suffer the most, guys. So if you're thinking about divorce, those of you watching this, I implore you to cry out to the name of Jesus and humble yourselves before your husband and your wife, and don't do it. It's not worth it. But anyways, in spite of that, my son is living proof that life is suffering, but there's always hope. And that suffering helps produce our endurance to live this life. Paul said, we run a race not just to win it, but to win it. He said, I'm paraphrasing, we don't just run the race to run it or compete in it. We do run it to win it. And we only run it through Jesus Christ. And so that really resonated with me a lot. But he and I talked a lot about, because he uses that particular part in the storyline to just give this great analogous example, or almost like a case study of this is what not to do. You can make plans, and that's cool. And, and look at your tangible situation. But if you make choices or decisions, you have to be mindful, and I hate using that word, but you need to be, able to discern and go, okay, I know that I can only do this much. If I make this choice or decision or this group of decisions, it's going to affect me in, ultimately my plan to achieve this goal, right? And I don't want to go into the details of this example because it will give away the book, and y'all need to get the book. So, all right. So, anyways, Richard, with regards to Guy Schmuckatelli, have those particular things happen to you?
I err on the side of caution. I'm generally one not to try to inflict those things on myself. It's not to say that I haven't, because I have. Right. I feel like everyone does. I feel the quantities can be disparaging of how some individuals can take a little bit of time to go, maybe I shouldn't do that. It probably wouldn't be a good idea. A little bit of critical thinking goes a long way. But it doesn't seem like people critically think all that much anymore. So they set themselves up for situations that they bring about their own suffering, and then the worst thing, they or their immediate group absolves them of it and go, it's not your fault. It's okay. It's insert factor that totally was not as big a thing as they make it sound to be. And it's like, no, you're your own worst enemy. Why do you keep doing this? I felt bad. I don't know. Like, stop doing it. I can't. Then don't complain about it.
Right. No.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating that people will do that to themselves over and over. And you just sit here and just go, I can have a better conversation with a deaf kid and get more common sense out of him than I'm getting out of you right now.
Yeah. Because in the book, like I said, I actually laughed when I read that example. Like, first I'm like, I did that, and then I just started laughing. I go, yeah, man, woo. It's funny because, like, in this day and age, and you cover more in detail about how the current world culture is, where there's a lack of personal accountability and taking responsibility for our actions, where we want to blame everybody else except ourselves. And it's not like, and even playing the blame game is not a healthy thing to do. You just own yourself, own your decisions, own your choices. And, I try to teach you guys, when you make decisions, make sure you get all the information, do your research, and then based on what you've researched and worked to get this info, then make your choice and decision, And before you make that choice or decision, talk to family, talk to friends, and get their insight on what their opinions are. Not that you want to base it on pleasing them, but you want more eyes, as we used to say in the Navy, and in particular in the special operations realm, you need eyes on target. You got to have eyes on that target or that prize that you're going after, and thereby, you're formulating a plan based on information, and you know that if you do that, more than likely, that outcome is going to be a blessing. If you don't do the research, if you don't do the work, then it's going to be a consequence. And I tried to impress that upon you and your brother and your sister when y'all were growing up. That's a big part of our personal responsibility is to own that, And what better way to take ownership than to really own it by doing the work and going, hey, I got to do this. If I want to get here, if I want to, buy a house one day, I need to start figuring out a way to earn more money, several streams of income, and set aside money, and just and maybe take that cash flow and invest it in something, and there's options for that, right? So but that's just one example, right? Or just in improving one's health or wellness or fitness, so on and so forth, your personal relationships. And Richard does a great job of talking about this in the book, and he's very concise. Though he's a lot more concise than I am when I try to communicate. All right, so moving on. In Chapter 3, the front of mentality, water part 1, you mentioned meditation, and you give suggestions on how to do it. What sources did you use as a reference for this portion of the book?
I was very heavily influenced by a lot of Bruce Lee's works, as well as Sasha Miyamoto's The Five Rings and The Art of War. A lot of those touch upon a clear mind is a deadly mind to have, because you have a greater capacity to counteract a lot of things thrown your way when you can think straight. And you won't always be in top form. You're always going to be at your best to outthink or be able to quite go at it at your top nominal condition. There will be days you're just off, but it's still a good habit to show up, because the consistency is going to carry you to where your motivational tank. Because motivation tanks. In my opinion, motivation, it's finite, and it'll collapse on you some days. And people, I think, chase motivation when they should chase habit. They should chase consistency, so the body does autonomously where the mind has failed.
Right. And so you mentioned the H word, habit. So it's in Chapter 3. When I read that part about habits, it took me back to your Taekwondo days. Your instructor, I won't mention his name, was conducting testing. It was on a Saturday. It was, he did like 2 testings every month, I think, or once every quarter or so. And it was always on a Saturday morning, and the kids had to come. It was full gi, all that stuff. And so he asked a question to the entire class. He said, "What does practice make?" And the majority of the class responded with the atypical response, perfect, or perfection, is what the response was. Obviously, sir, right behind that. And he responded, "No, practice makes a habit. A habit can be good, a habit can be bad. You choose." That, man, I never forgot that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's stuck to this day.
And again, that was my question. Do you remember that day?
I remember it.
Dude, man, it was
that was probably one of the main sources that got channeled into that chapter from that.
Yeah, and I just, man, when I read it, I'm like, whoo, wow, So again, guys, I mean, we should, be aware of things in our lives that we can make changes for, and you don't have to be, you don't have to be super educated about it. The education you need is about oneself, to know oneself, right? I know Shakespeare, he talks, and I think in life, when we come into situations, and in particular, Richard talks about this, about unknown things that we're unfamiliar with that make us uncomfortable, or new things, those, we have to have a mindset of not having a spirit of fear about it, but embracing it, and at least taking the challenge upon ourselves to try something different and something new, because you never know, that may be the breakthrough that you've been looking for the whole time, in spite of your research and your information, gold mining, whatever you want to do. And next thing you know, boom, it just out of nowhere, it's just like, yeah, why not go backpacking? Why not go surf down in Peru or whatever the case may be, right? So anyways, I thought those are really, really powerful parts of the book for me. Really, really were, man. It was awesome. Okay, Chapter 4, the front of water part 2, you mentioned Buddhism and Zen as a reference to the methodology of clearing the mind. And again, this is the part where, I'll deviate a little bit and just share, my, how I responded to that, not just intellectually, but also in my spirit. To me, because I recognize, I know what Buddhism is, and I know what Zen is a part of Buddhism in its application and approach. However, I know that it's a dangerous practice from what I know of it, because, and not just Buddhism or Zen, but anything, yoga, transcendental meditation, these things, what it actually does is, and a lot of the world doesn't know this, is that when you're opening up your mind, you're literally like cleaning out your spiritual house, and then at that point, you open yourself up to all kinds of other things that can come in. So, but that was just, my take on that. I still think that there's validity with people who read the book if they're looking to try to find an answer. But for me personally, as a Christian, I obviously that opposes the Spirit of God, because of that, you make yourself vulnerable is what that does. Now, for me, what I do for meditation is, in particular, God, His Son, Jesus, and His own Holy Spirit, and His Word. That's primarily what I do. I'll read His Word while I'm reading. I'll communicate with God, either directly in my spirit language. I pray, but I also will take time to be quiet. I won't open myself up. I'm just going to sit there and be quiet and listen to what God tells me. And He's always faithful to give me an answer, to where I'm not having to seek and search and go to different levels of the chakras and all this other stuff that Eastern thought teaches, which is not good at all. And again, through that, what brought up to my memory was this scripture where it says, wide is the gate to destruction. Many will find it and enter into it. And there is a straight gate which leads to God. Not many will find that, much less enter into it. So for me, anyways, from the Christian perspective, that was one thing that I'm not a subscriber to, but I know that there are going to be non-Christians who will read the book as well. So again, I'm not poo-pooing on it. I'm just stating my point of view. That's all. What are your thoughts on that as far as meditation and all that? I mean, you stated in the book, but
more so in the practical sense, because there's a practicality to just relaxing yourself and going back to a place to where you can be quiet by yourself. Mm-hmm. Peace. It's more the practical application of getting to a point where you can focus your mind. It doesn't have to be from that very school of thought. It can be from wherever you feel you want it to come from. You can draw upon. That's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of the book. It makes people think, well, maybe I can do another example, because I'm a human being. I'm certainly not perfect. Far from it. Make no claim to it. I'm just a dude who wrote a book and put it out there. Right. But it's to inspire critical thinking and to make you go, maybe I can find something relatable to help. But whatever it is to help you out as a person is what I ultimately wanted to put upon people.
Yeah, and that's what I gathered from that. But I'm with you. I mean, in meditation, it should be a time, guys, where you should be able to quiet yourself down. Okay, and really, for me, it's very peaceful when I do meditate with the Lord. When and then through all the different, I guess, modalities, if you will, of doing, and not really just doing it. It's performed because. I just love God, and I need all of Him, to help me in just living life the right way. A big component of that we don't see in the world is peace, right? So meditation, I know, does help, quiet us, calm us down, and again, even we should be seeking peace that goes beyond all understanding and knowledge, and so that's for me, anyways. That's from the Christian perspective. But again, I'm in agreement with you. What you wrote in the book, I'm not a subscriber to Buddhism or Zen. It's one way. And like I've said to you many times, there's more than one way to skin a cat in there. So, whoever may read this, my hope always is primarily, Jesus, that, to whatever they read in there, that, it'll draw them, closer, to the God that created everything, But anyways, that was just something that stood out to me. I don't think it was, I wouldn't say it was a negative thing. It was just, kind of like just a different perspective. You know what I mean? But I do agree with you. Meditation is for putting yourself into, just basically keeping your peace inside of you. No matter what. The storm could be around you, but you don't lose your peace. And we look around us and we see so much unrest. Now more than ever, people they're losing sleep because of these devices here. It's just a myriad of different things, and Richard does a good job of addressing some of these things that technology has done to our culture and our society globally, not just here in the U.S., but around the world. Everybody has a cell phone now. I mean, it's crazy. And there are components of cell phones that are scientifically proven to keep us awake to where we don't get rest. And so that's just one facet there. But, to be able to seek peace for yourself and to keep it and not let anyone take away your peace, that's what living is really all about. Because you're going to encounter storms, man. You're going to go through it, right? I mean, you're going to go through the rough stuff. And your ability to not lose that peace, oh man, it's awesome. And Richard does a great job of talking about that in the book. Okay, let me see here. Chapter 5, the front of Strength Earth, Part 1. I really enjoyed this chapter quite a bit because I am a physical person. I know my physicality may not exhibit itself on the outside, but I do. I ride my bike and go to the gym. I did powerlift in my younger days. I do hit the gym, but not obviously like I did in my 20s. I'm not lifting 300 to 400 pounds, in sets. No, I'm not doing that. But as I got older, I kind of slacked off, and I've worked hard for this dad bod. But I've been convicted that I need to take care of my temple because it is a temple of God. But again, reading this section, son, it encouraged me to just keep going and don't stop. And you're going to see that in the book when you read it. He does a really good job. He's a good motivator. He's a good encourager. I know that's a trait that I have. One of my gifts is I'm a really good encourager and all that. So again, son, great job to you. Kudos for doing that. As a certified personal trainer, can you share some personal stories or examples of how you help your clients achieve their physical fitness and wellness goals?
I've had the experiences over the years without doing the legal thing of receiving payment, or more so like in an advisory role. People would just go, "Hey, can you help me with this? What can I do?" Mm-hmm. And I found a lot of people coming to me over the years, so I went, all right, I want to be able to actually get paid to do this, so I'm going to be giving advice out this much and work with people to do it. Mm-hmm. So after getting my license, I've got a few clients on right now, mm-hmm. and I haven't gotten anything too crazy yet, I would say, thankfully. In terms of like a situation of what someone can or can't do, what are their limitations, but I have it's just know your client, like care enough to understand them, to listen to what do you struggle with, what are some weak points, what any past injuries, is there any medical history that may inhibit, to which that can lead to its own plethora of different avenues that so on and so on. Yeah. But just you got to be attentive. You gotta want to care. If you're in it, you don't care about the people you're training, and it's like, what are you doing then?
Yeah, definitely in the wrong line of work.
Yeah,
right?
Care about them, but don't sugarcoat them either for not doing the work they're supposed to be doing too. They're coming to you to receive a service, and you're there to provide that to the fullest extent. As long as you're providing your part, then do your due diligence. And everyone's human. There are gonna be some days that, well, man, I'm kind of slacking right now. I understand. We go through rough things. The important thing is make it a point to get back to it. Continue with the consistency. I'm not here to harp down on you, but I'm also not going to waste time if you're going to waste time on yourself. I don't want that for you. You want better things for you. I want better things for you. That is what we're here to do, and I want to see you do it. I can't do the work for you, but I can support you in any way, shape, form possible. I can encourage you throughout the day. I can show you that I'm in the gym doing my grind that I need to do. Mm-hmm. But you have to show up and do it. I can't do it for you. I can't put strings on you and go, all right, go up and run that 3 miles. Yeah, baby, that's good. All right now. Yeah, right. You can't do that. Like people are beings of free will, and they have to act upon that free will to choose, which is also in the book, the Empower Rule, to choose to actively go and do those things for themselves.
Right. So would you say that, not just what the book does, but even in your practice with personal training, that mindset is like probably one of the most important things? Do you think that's a
mindset? Part of it? Yeah, it definitely helps. Because your body can be athletically capable as all get out, but if you don't have the mindset to guide it, the body's a vessel. The mind is ultimately the wheel to take that vessel to where it needs to go. Yeah, and mindset's a very important thing, which is why I put the front of water for mentality before physical.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because as you were speaking, I was thinking about, and we've talked about this many times, where the mind goes, the body will follow, and we get that from we know quite a few guys in the special operations community here in Virginia Beach. I used to work at the Naval Special Warfare Development Group for a time as a civil servant. And so we mutually know a lot of Navy Special Warfare operators, SEALs, and then the support personnel, and they all tell you the same thing: is their job is 110% physical. These guys are like Olympic level athletes. A majority of their day is allocated for training the weapon, which is their body. And so, and you'll hear it from them all the time. And I've had to monitor these guys on different systems when I used to work in the range division, and seeing what they do, it's amazing. But see, that's why, you know, when they go through selection and training, because there's a process for that. You got to go to BUDS to become a SEAL. I know Richard was considering that at one time. It's your mindset, man. You know, you got to have your mind right. You know, because when your body starts encountering those inconvenient pains and things like that, that's where the rubber really hits the road. And either you're gonna, you know, your mind's gonna push your body past its known limit, or your mind's gonna shut yourself down. It's good. It goes one way or the other. There's no middle ground. What it is?
No, there's no middle ground.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty cool. You know, I really like that. Chapter 5, The Front of Strength, Earth, Part 1. I like when you use G. Michael Hoff's quote, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And I believe that's where we're at right now. With this quote in mind, can you give our audience your take on A, toxic masculinity in an already emasculated world?
Oh, man. I'm either going to raise or kill your viewership with this, so brace with me. Oh, man. Oh,
Yep.
So
this is another loaded question.
I'll deliver, but you know, I make no promises. Prepare for the backlash.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
And the old toxic masculinity thing, I understand that males are the biologically stronger and bigger species of the human kind. It's not to say there aren't women outliers that can't do it. It doesn't make us better. It doesn't make us superior. It simply means we are better in that avenue of terms of physicality and biological build. And I think a lot of that gets construed because some either will take a stance of superiority on that, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't feel that you're a superior human being, think you're better than the next person just because you have some attribute like that. I mean, it's nice to have it, but you can't go thinking around that you're superior to anyone. You're a human being. You know, it's cool you have that, and it's good to have a mentality like, I'm proud of it, but not to hold yourself in a holier than thou perspective like that. But yeah, oh man, this is a topic actually I've talked with a lot of guys I network with, and it's kind of sad that part of it has spurned from dudes out there that have thrown that weight around in the worst ways possible. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people, mostly female, that have suffered unfortunately because of that. Mm-hmm. And now the outlashing back because of that is, well, anything that seems masculine or powerful from a dude, we have to emasculate it because it's a threat. And that's not always the case. You know, strong men have always created and continued history. It was strong dudes creating pyramids, going to war, fighting those wars, building buildings like the Empire State Building. It was all dudes up on it. Not to say women couldn't do it, but how often do you find the ratio of men to women equal in any labor category? It's usually men, because we're biologically more adept to do these kinds of things. So I feel a lot of things that men do, that them being masculine, we're high energy guys. We like to compete with each other. You know, we fight with each other. That's what we do. We size each other up. It's just inherent. It's just the way we are. There's a certain point you can't argue biology for the sake of a socio-political standpoint. And that's what we do as guys. We compete. You know, we're lively, we're rambunctious, we have energy. And I feel that the whole slap label of toxic masculinity is delving more and more into tearing every one of those down and laying it bare. Mm-hmm. I think that it's starting to go a little too far into the realm of, well, how badly down do you want to whiffle up these dudes and, you know, make them super, I guess, weak? Yeah. the best word I can think of. It's like, what are you going to do if a war were to come to our doorstep one day? Thankfully, it hasn't happened since World War II, but what if it does one day? And you've got all these dudes that haven't thrown a punch in their life, and now you want to give them a gun and say, hey, you got to go fight a war now. Well, I wasn't ready for this. Well, why not? Because it's toxic masculinity.
Yeah, and then of course, you know, in conjunction with that, and then, you know, we have, you know, on the opposite side of it, where we have the whole transgender thing, where men are going into the female arena of being a competitor and calling themselves a transgender person, where it's a male body, but yet they're competing as a female, and that just I know for myself, it's just straight up, that's just wrong. I think it's evil, because and most women who are competitors and athletes, it's not fair. It's not right at all. Not at all.
They absolutely hate it. I've heard a lot of interviews with them. They're tired of it because they compete in their own field. They work and train their asses off to do that.
Right.
And just to have someone of a biologically more build to their sport that's claiming to be a female, okay, yeah, like you've got the reproductive part now, but for 20-something years, maybe more, you grew with the testosterone coming through your body, strengthening your bone mass, your muscle mass, developing those fast and slow twitch muscle fibers, and overall higher capacity for oxygen respiration to make you overall a better athletic performer.
Right.
To do that and switch the field, just go, well, I want to compete in women's. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to them at all. I have nothing against anyone who's trans. That if that's something they feel they want to do or they need to do, then they do it because they're handling a problem they best see fit. I believe the DS5 calls it gender dysphoria. I'm not a psychologist. I don't make no claim to that other than people are free to live their lives as need be, but don't go treading on someone else's accomplishments because you want to use that as like a virtue signal.
Yeah, I personally, I know myself, I don't, it's just wrong. The whole gender dysphoria is just, it's BS to me. And quite frankly, again, my take is from the Bible. God made man and he made woman. He didn't make man to compete, against women. He didn't, there's no scripture that says that or even talks about that. But yeah, with, and it's going to be leading into the second question, actually. But with how our current culture is, pretty much, society throughout most of the world is very matriarchal, with the exception of a few places like the Middle East. Most of the Western world is a matriarchal society. That's why we see what's happening. And then, then it's tied into the next part of the question is feminism. What are your thoughts on feminism in a matriarchal society?
Feminism has layers to it because traditional feminism was to at least bring equal rights, that's the version of the word I recognize. The ones initially brought women's rights, like they were able to vote to the forefront, and those were, I think they were great things. Mm-hmm. What they call third wave, I guess now, what they call the feminazism, that's on the extreme end of the spectrum that can be quite a bit to deal with. Again, it comes from a place where there are people that unfortunately have suffered, maybe the hands of men. And again, it's not fair for any dude to think he can go and do such things as I've aforementioned. Mm-hmm. But it's a response that has now delved in the extreme to where it becomes all-encompassing, and instead of taking reason and rationale, which a lot of extreme point anything, because there are dudes on the spectrum that go the far end, like the super red pill MGTOW guys that just, all women are evil, and God, she's not yours, bro, it's just your turn. It's like, I don't subscribe to that either, because you guys are on the extreme. Anything in an extreme without a want for understanding, balance, but willing to hold on your own viewpoint as well, and not learn through another through meaningful conversation and debate if it calls for. Extremes are just it just drives people further apart. It's just more divisionalism.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And finally, what are your thoughts on marriage? And I get another little question, because he's engaged to be married, by the way, guys. So congratulations, Melissa and Richard. But anyway,
thank you. Marriage
kind of changed the direction here.
Yeah, marriage. I've had a sine wave of reactions to it. When I was getting out of high school, I held it in an immensely high regard, but I feel like I over romanticized it, and that's my hubris kicking in. And then you get your heart kicked in the tushy enough times, you kind of swing down, and then I was like, well, why would I want to get married? It didn't seem like everybody wants to make this work. Like, I'm watching relationships and marriages fail more and more every day. with people my own generation, younger, older, my own friends even, and it's a sad thing to see. It's like, I have no hope for this. Nobody else seems to want to do this. Why don't I get married? And then in the last couple of years or so, I've swung back up to the other side of the sine wave with more understanding. When I've seen both sides of this. Marriage is a good institution. It's work. There can be bad sides if it fails, but you come from a place of understanding, empathy, compassion, but also being sturdy and doing what you have to do in your relationship and or your marriage to make it work. And you just show up and make it work every day. It's a good start, at least. I don't have the end all be all answer to marriage. If I did, I'd be running a business for it, but I don't. I'm just a dude who's about to enter it within a year or so. But I have a lot more temperance and understanding to not jump so head first, nor have such a scathing, caustic view of it anymore. But I guess it was with time and experience.
Yeah, well, like for me, I mean, I still love, marriage. I my desire is, I want a wife, and the failures of my first marriage were, and I owned up to those things. You knew all about my failures because I confessed them to you and your brother and your sister, as part of, what I had to do to make things right with you guys, because I knew that divorce was going to harm you guys, and you didn't do anything to deserve that. It wasn't your fault. But what I realized through the process of going through divorce was that, in as much as, my desires and what I wanted, God did have other plans. Now, for those of you that are watching this who are Christians, and, you're going to, bring up Malachi 2:14, where the Lord God hates divorce, you need to make sure you do your hermeneutics and your contextual research correct, because what it actually means in the Hebrew is God hated the putting away of the wife. And during that time, in Malachi, he was one of the prophets in his Old Testament. And so back then, there was still what was called polygyny going on, where the men had more than one wife to propagate the species. And a man's wealth was measured not just by his livestock, but by the size of his family and the amount of sons he had. So that's why you had large families back in that time. And that was after the days of Noah, after the days of the flood that flooded the earth. So I interject all those things to just say that marriage is an institution created by God for a man and a woman. We have talked about that, quite a bit, we just leave it at that. If people have an issue with that, we're not like beating people over the head and shoulders about, the institution of marriage. So I kind of want to just get that out there as kind of a disclaimer or whatever. I mean, y'all can put your comments up if you want. I don't discourage that. If they're going to be just very vulgar and vile and profane, then I'll remove it. But I want everyone to have a chance to give comments, because that way, I want to share these things with Richard once I post this up on my channel. So, anyways, I'm with you, son. I think in different parts of our lives, we look at marriage differently. When I was going through the divorce, I was in desperation mode to save my marriage, and God had other plans, and it crushed me, because I thought that God was going to do a certain thing. I thought he was going to reconcile and restore your mom and me, and he didn't do it. He told me I'm not going to do that, and that just totally rocked my world for a moment. But then God told me, because he's my Father in heaven, he says, you need to stop crying. You need to be a man and start moving forward and ministering to people with this gospel that I gave to you in the world. You're supposed to be preaching the gospel, Alex. Don't worry about your marriage. She done left the building. So, if you haven't noticed that, she's already made her decision and she's moving on already. You need to move forward and live for me. And so that was a pivotal role. But see, my relationship with God is a marriage. Okay? Even, I know some people look at it kind of weird. I'm not like in the earthly romantic sense. It's just that the relationship is that intimate with God, where it literally is a marriage that we're supposed to have through his son Jesus. And it took a progression of time. It took years for me to come into that understanding. When I did, the peace, the joy, and the love, I never really lost that, but I was hurt and broken for a little bit, definitely for more than 5 minutes. And it was part of, God just growing me. and changing things in me and pointing out things that I wasn't seeing clearly. But yeah, so anyways, like I said, a lot of that stuff I knew were loaded questions, but I really wanted the people to know my son and just how you look at things, because I think you look at things, you and I agree on a lot of different things, but I love how your perspective is, and I don't take any credit for that. That's just because of you as an individual, and I do believe, in what God's given you. Okay, moving on, because we're already at an hour, and we're just going to keep on going till we stop. Okay. All right. So in chapter 6, the front of straight earth, part 2, I really enjoyed your quick down and dirty on nutrition and putting food in its proper perspective. Food is fuel. It must be planned and programmed to be effective. I learned a few new things with regard to proper nutrition calculations from the chapter, breaking down the 4, 4, and 9. For the carbs, the fats, and the protein, or the protein and fats, whichever order it was in. I don't quite remember. And again, I can't thank you enough for that. That was really cool. And I know this may sound like a redundant question, but I'm going to ask you: did you learn that information from your path to becoming a certified personal trainer?
I learned along the way. Okay. I learned it years ago, actually, from a friend of mine that he went in to become a doctor. So he does doctoring in something. Okay. I'm sorry, but I don't remember what it is. So if you watch this by some chance, forgive me. I don't remember what you went to be a doctor for, but I know you did it, and you're the authority.
Yeah, please let me know his name so I don't go to him.
But he was the one that helped me out. And it was right before I made the decision to join the Navy when I was 23. Right. That was the summer I went through a breakup and just an overall life tailspin and went, what am I doing? Like, I feel stagnant. I feel like I'm going nowhere. And this is a terrible feeling. And I spent like a good portion of the summer just drinking heavily and just eating whatever I wanted, and not in the good way, like just ad nauseum. I wasn't even working out. I'm like, I'll get off work, maybe go fishing, down a bottle or two, and it wasn't good. But trying to fix myself out of that, he was the one that helped me, and he laid it out for me. So this is how these 3 macronutrients work. They obviously break down into micronutrients, but overall, managing these and understanding how they work and how caloric intake and deficit works will probably help streamline you get there faster. And it really did. So, again, Dan, if you're watching this, thanks. I'm sorry, I don't remember. You can yell at me later, dude. I won't take any offense to it. Congrats on your kid, by the way. I love little Axel.
That's funny, man. Well, I'm assuming he's probably either a medical doctor or, a PC or something, like primary care provider. I don't know. But anyways, thank you, Dan, for giving that knowledge to my son. I appreciate it, because it's transferred on to me now. Because that's something I've heard of the terms. I just didn't know the nuts and bolts of it, the minute details, and that was really good. All right, moving on. In Chapter 7, The Front of Earth, Strength, Part 3. Again, I enjoyed this chapter as well because it's simple yet complex, covering a large area of concerns and knowledge in the area of strength. Can you give some personal examples of how this approach has benefited your clients, family, and friends?
Strength overall doesn't have to just be in a physical. Strength is just the ability to withstand, to be resilient, to endure, and to overcome. So I put it a lot in the physical realm because when you're training and you're training for a specific thing, it takes strength to get through those things. You don't have to be super strong to get to the weight you want, you do have to be strong when you're moving weights, but I feel being strong is the result of putting in the work and what you get in turn for your work. That, I believe, is what creates the strength, not the strength creates into that. But, it takes strength born from showing up to that grind every day to get more strength to continue doing so.
Right. So, pretty much just getting back to like mindset, and then like Satchel Paige said, if you don't mind it's a matter of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. Yeah. And so, to have our minds right, there is a certain strength that will always carry you through. Again, for me, my strength is obviously the Lord, but also that goes from the spiritual to a physical and also emotional as well. Those are different parts of who we are as human beings and how God made us. And I do recognize and validate that as well, that, your mindset is pretty much very, very critical, man. If you're going to go, whether it's a workout, or you're going to do some work, in your vocation. I know when you did the surveying work, that was hard work.
Oh, that was laborious as all get out.
Yeah, my first job was cropping tobacco, hardest job I ever had in my life, hands down. But I knew that, I was going to work to earn some money. So my mindset was, I'm going to earn money because mom and dad told me they didn't have money to pay for my school clothes, my lunch, or my books. So I had to pay for all that. My freshman year in high school, I distinctly remember that. And so I went to work, okay? And it literally is, having mental assent in a good way of making a decision, or a cluster or group or progression of decisions that are going to lead you to where, you're going to be successful. You're going to achieve that goal or a group of goals that you've got lined up, okay? And that's just the bottom line, with regard to that. But that spoke to me a lot. Okay, cool. In chapter 8, the front of belief, fire, you write, everyone believes in someone or something. For some, it may be a religion of some sort. It may be a person, science, political, philosophical, or even astrological entity they hold as their belief. There's no right or wrong answer, for everyone is open and free to believe what they want. What is your belief system?
My belief system, obviously, there's a lot of Christian and Catholic influence from upbringing because of you, which I'm grateful for. As I've also been around other people in the world, and I've been to other places in the world, I've come to appreciate as an outsider looking in, just going, that's how it works. I'm a curious person. I like to know how things work. So ultimately, if that's what it is, and as long as it doesn't hurt people, because no good belief is in the basis of doing malevolence or hurting people.
Right.
Then it's important to have something, because not believing in anything, it impacts and blunts your mentality greatly. And it's not to say that, I don't believe in anything in terms of the well, what do you believe in? Everyone believes in something. People have an inherent nature to believe.
Yeah. The again, I just asked that because I have a good idea what you believe in. I know that you've been through the grinder of beliefs through the years because of what's happened to you, not just the divorce, but just like you were talking about the relational breakups and things like that. And I know that devastated you in a lot of ways. But yeah, one of the things that is true is, one of Abraham Lincoln said it too, man. I don't want to make this about maxims, but he said a very good thing, and it was really true. If you don't take a stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And it ties into, what do you believe in, Again, I know for my son and myself, we believe in God. We believe in Jesus and His own Holy Spirit, and we believe in the power of His Word and in the fellowship. And those are all things that, when we live life, we keep those things in mind when we're living. And I echo what he said earlier in the podcast about, we're not perfect, but check it out. You look at yourself in the mirror, you ain't perfect either. That mole that's on your left arm, yeah, that ain't perfect. So and again, I say that in a very loving and supportive way. But the thing is yes, if you don't have a sound belief system, if you don't know what you believe and why you believe it, and he talks about that in the book, then some introspection is in order. Some time spent with the one who made you is in order as well. So that's why I wanted to ask that, and also for them to kind of know deeper just who you are. You wrote, many of us will cast our willingness to believe in many things outside of ourselves, yet neglect to put belief in the one thing that could use it, ourselves. How quick are we to pray to a deity, things, stars, or being in hopes they will alleviate our suffering, snuff out our problems, and bring us joy, blessings, health, and good fortune? Yet in tackling simple day-to-day struggles, we don't believe in ourselves. We practice a litany of destructive habits to our minds, our bodies, and sometimes to those around us. We let ourselves become acquiescing victims of the struggles of life, simply taking the piss, pardon my French here, without building ourselves up. But that's in the book, and a colloquialism, if you will. From a biblical perspective, obviously for me, this can be dangerous. But however, I do agree with just, in the day-to-day things, right? Waking up, brushing your teeth, getting your clothes ready for work. Those are tangible things that you have to do, all right? I have a job, so I need to come into work to work the job so I can get paid. Those are all, I like to put that in my category of the no-brainer, right? And you described it well, the simple tasks of the day, So I'm not totally against that part. It just, it was just something that came up. Obviously our belief in God should be the priority for those of us who are Christians. If you're not a Christian, we're not saying this to be offensive. It's just, what we believe in and what we stand for. However, if you don't believe in God, or whatever you believe in, that's why it's important to know what you believe in, right? In order to do even just the simplest of things. He wrote this because, and correct me if I'm wrong, son, but this is what I got when I read it, is that, there are a lot of us out there who, again, we don't take personal accountability and responsibility for the choices and actions that we have to make. It isn't like optional. This is in the needs category. This is like life and death. And if we choose not to do that, and then things blow up in our face, now we're pointing fingers and blaming somebody else. Well, that's on us. When we had the ability to up here and in here and in our bodies to be able to do what we needed to do to handle our business. Is that pretty much what you're conveying?
Yeah, the first chapter, Life is Suffering topic, really delves into that.
Right.
The belief system where it's the believing yourself is more of the don't doubt on yourself too much. You're capable of a great infinitesimal amount of things, but you have to believe that you are capable of these things and have to put it to action. And it's core because a lot of people don't do that. They just, I'll fake believing in myself. Like, I got this handled, and then another, 5 minutes later, one small thing, total meltdown. Stop doing that.
Right.
Why? Why do you have such low belief in yourself? Start accomplishing some things to build your own confidence in yourself up if that's the case. But you need to have that. If you don't believe you can't go out there and, give the world a hiney spanking on the day-to-day, and somebody's going to spank your hiney more than you're going to get it. But still, you're out there at least mixing with it and trying to get at it. But it's core. You need that belief in yourself to, I can do this. I can take down these problems. And even if I can't do it immediately, I can find an avenue that can help me to do so. Or I can learn a way to overcome it. But you need to have the belief that you can do it overall.
Yes. No, and I do, and that's when I was reading through it, at first I'm like, this really isn't, to me anyways, because of just where I'm at in life, I totally am in agreement with what you're conveying. And a lot of, and you cover it very well in the very beginning with, life is suffering. It is true. People are suffering right now as we're recording this. But knowing what you believe and why you believe it, having your mind right in what you believe, those are integral parts. And Richard does a really great job, I believe, of hitting upon those points there. I think it's really good. Anyways, that's pretty much all the questions that I had. So we're at an hour and 13 minutes, and we're just gonna. I'm going to close up, and I'll just got one more question for Richard there. So, leave your comments, and all that, because I will be sharing those with Richard, and I will be posting this up on Facebook as well. You leave your comments there on Facebook too. I welcome that, and I'm gonna put a link in the description for the link to his book. It's on Amazon. All you got to do is you can either through your Kindle or on your Amazon account, just type in The Four Fronts by Rich K. Rubio, and boom, there you go. And in the end of the book, he does have contact information if you would like to reach out to him with regards to his book and all that, or personal training, just really anything, because he's pretty much, no pun intended, he's an open book. He's well versed in a lot of things, as hopefully you guys have gathered. Okay, son, so I'm going to wrap up things with just a few more questions. And I already know part of the answer to this question. So what's on the horizon for you right now as far as writing? What's in the works right now?
Down the line, I feel there's probably going to be a spiritual continuation of this book. like its own successor, or maybe just to delve further into each one if people want that. I definitely want to start writing the fantasy series that I've been framing out for some time now, and I'm starting to get together. And after this got released and just the reaction was great, I went, I need to do this more. I like this. Yeah. So definitely the fantasy series I want to delve into next, which I haven't got everything concrete, but I'm building an outline and a framework right now, and I'll probably start putting the pen to the paper, so to say, around like January or so.
Okay, cool. Very good. Speak a little bit on Fireheart. Can you expand on that a little bit? Well, I know you talk about it in the book, but just can you go into a bit more detail.
I have my personal training services, Fireheart Coaching, and my fitness gear line, Fireheart Fit Gear, and both of those delve from my Dungeons and Dragons character, Broomguard Fireheart, who's this like mighty Viking that he's experienced. He's seen some things, but just as he went on, who he was, just going out there and like, well, there's an insurmountable task ahead of us. I've got it handled. The name just stuck with me and went, you know what? I kind of want to give homage to that character and put it in future things that I do. So it went into my coaching and training line, and as well as my fitness gear line, because I want both to carry the spirit of, go out in the world, don't be afraid to go take it on.
Okay. All right. And finally, the very last question. And we'll close it up. If you had the ability to make one change in your life, what would it be?
I'll probably be at the point by now where I have the income coming in that I want from everything that I do. Just, I guess, to fast forward the time needed, the progress to where I want to be. But again, that's why it's a if you could kind of question, because I know it's going to take time and work to do so. But I wish I was just there already, because that's just who I am.
Right.
I execute upon speed and efficiency.
Right. Yeah. Well, guys, I think that's going to wrap it up for this podcast that has no name. So I never really, Anyways, for those of you that subscribe to my channel, you know the name of the channel. So we'll just go with that for right now. Anyways, Richard, I definitely want to thank you so much, buddy, for just coming and being a part of this. Again, I'm so proud of you for your achievements. Again, guys, leave your comments in the comment boxes there on YouTube. Once I get this all processed and edited, then it'll be going up on my Facebook page as well and on Twitter. So, again, we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to just listen to what's going on. And I highly recommend this book, by the way. Like I said, we went through and I kind of did just kind of like a preview / review of it so that you, the audience, can get an idea of who he is. And also, what the book's about. I believe that it's there as a help because I think now more than ever the world needs, the world needs Jesus, and I do believe that there's a lot of help in the book that he wrote. So we thank you for your time, and like I always say, be good or be good at it. All right, guys, take care. Aloha.